We know that there is one that is being spilled out there, being Nolan Arenado, who throughout his entire career has been one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. And we had a report come out about his full no trade clause and how he would be willing to waive it for 6 different teams. The Dodgers were on there. The Angels were on there. But one of those teams were the New York Mets. Recently, David Stearns at the winter meetings, he did say that he does consider and view Mark Vientos as a third baseman, which I do believe that means that Brett Beatty could be on his way out of here. Fingers crossed. But when it comes to the third base position, maybe you lose Alonso. Maybe they don't want to give up the comp pick for somebody like Christian Walker. Arenado, here's the thing. I don't think it's a good fit. I know maybe it looks like a good fit on a fantasy team roster, but I think this was a good idea 3-4 years ago. Let me know if that's what you agree with, or maybe you agree with some way, because I understand the intrigue. I get it, but not the direction I would go.
It is a tough one. I try to think of it more so from the Mets perspective. And, I think that with Vientos, like, we saw the great offensive numbers. And, when it's all said and done, who had the better offensive season? Was it Vientos or was it Arenado? It was Vientos. But the glove still does play for Nolan Arenado. It's not what it was, but he's still, I think, like 95th percentile OAA at third base. And I mean, to me, there is something appealing about a left side of the infield that has both Lindor and Arenado. It's like, if you hit it to the left, good luck, because one of those two guys are probably going to get it. So I like that part of it. But the very very big drop-off that happened from Arenado from year 2022 to 2023 offensively is alarming. I mean, it was a big drop-off. Yes. And then in 2024, it was really similar to 23 and not 22. So his power just might be gone. And that's a big issue, because that was the other thing that he had going for him. He was an RBI machine. He was someone that could hit a lot of home runs. So you added that with his bat, and you had a 7-win player. Whereas now he's hovering like in that 2 range. A lot of it's because of offense. Now, his contract is very interesting because of how the Rockies factor into this. So between them and the Cardinals, like, his money's kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. Like, he's at $21 million this year, but then $16 million the year after that, and then $15 the year after that. And, like, the Rockies pay some of it, and then he's got some stuff that's deferred by the Cardinals. Like, it's all over the place. Now, if the Mets could get the Cardinals to maybe eat a little more money out of it, and the price is right as far as like what needs to go back, like, you're not parting with like a big time prospect for him. I mean, absolutely not. If the price is right, again, a lot of stuff drops down. If you're able to have Arenado be a third baseman and move Vientos to DH, I mean, you really could solve quite a few things here. And then, like I said, you get Pete back, your lineup is set. I mean, that is a really nice lineup. And, defensively too, like, you kind of have everything you need. So, again, I feel like there are other teams that probably need Arenado more than the Mets, so you would think would offer more, and that would be a better deal for the Cardinals to take. But I'll say, like, there's some appeal, a little bit, but not much. I mean, you have to factor into that, even though that contract does go down. I mean, you're also looking at so next year he's going to be 34, but then you're looking at paying him age 35, age 36. If the offense already had the drop off, I mean, I'm kind of afraid if maybe there's another drop off once he gets past 35, and then that's where you're like, now you're literally just paying for a glove at third base, which I don't think you can do. So, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, he's a really fascinating one. I mean, like you said, a few years ago, if he was available, oh my gosh, we'd be like, go get him. But now we're like, we don't have to. The way I view it now, I view it more as like a luxury than a need at this current point.
I'm not the biggest fan of his bat over the last 2 years. I don't know if he has been banged up or anything, but as compared to what he was doing in 2022, where, he was absolutely killing it. Again, I don't see it getting any better into his mid 30s. He's going to be 34 years old next year. I feel like right now, in the mind of, let's say, David Stearns, because we don't know how he does think, but I don't see this being something on his priority personally, mainly because I feel like the Mets have just too many infield prospects as to where they're like, okay, we have to give somebody a shot. We do need to give them somewhat of a shot in this infield, and I'm not saying that they are the answer, but when you trade away for a guy like Nolan Arenado, who's going to be here for the remainder of his contract, it makes me really question what the plan is. Maybe they don't have as much patience, maybe. Let's say they do end up dealing for Arenado this offseason, which, again, I still don't see happening. But when it comes to it from Arenado's standpoint, what is their confidence in Ronnie Mauricio's health? What is their confidence in maybe the health of Jet Williams? I do think that they should give one of the young guys a chance to fill in with the infield, because, again, you're going to already be spending unusual money on a first baseman if Pete Alonso ends up coming back. So
well, I think that's the other thing too. Like, there's also a scenario where it's like, if you trade for Arenado, then maybe move Vientos to first, and then you say, okay, would you rather have Arenado for less years at a higher age, or Pete for more years at a higher value too? So that's the other thing, that like you like, would you rather Arenado or Pete in some sense?
I'm easy coming saying I'd say no to Arenado. Yeah, I think that this was like, okay, was this 3 or 4 years ago? I'd pull the trigger here, but I feel like you do have a lot of these infield prospects that you want to see something at least from them, or give them a chance to win the job outright. Arenado is going to be starting every single day for you, no matter what, if you do trade him in there. Obviously, you could trade those assets for other pieces, but I do think that you just have so many infield prospects. You have so many of these young infield guys that, like, you got to at least give it a try. You can't plug in a all-star at every single position when you have this much of a surplus internally, and especially being as low as they are regarding on pitching. How they deal that out, you never know. I feel like the Mets have a lot of different options of guys regarding this infield that we all can really kind of just sit back and see how that kind of plays out. Another factor that I want to put in here is I just don't see him as a fit in New York. Personally, I don't like Arenado's attitude. I really don't. The way that he has handled a lot of different stuff over the past few years. Not really the Yohan Lopez fight or anything. That's water under the bridge. Who knows? But the way that he kind of handled himself in Colorado, and I understand wanting out of there because they're terrible, but also the way that we have heard a lot of reports of him with the Cardinals right now, of how we don't know what direction they're going in. Maybe it's just like, one of those things where veterans start to clash as compared to what we had with the 2023 team, maybe. But when it comes to Arenado, I don't know if it's like a character fit or anything. I understand, like, he's definitely, he's been a big stage guy before, but I'm just saying that Colorado, St. Louis market, there's not many eyes on you in that regard. To New York, in a declining way that his bat has gone through over these last 2 years, if he doesn't do well, I feel like there's going to be some issue. I feel like the media is going to go after him, and he's going to, there's a possibility that he gets pushed out of New York if it does not work out. Because I just don't think it's a really good fit. It's not really as much as like Jack Flaherty, because Jack Flaherty's just a head case in my opinion. But when it comes to Arenado, I feel like when things go sour, he's one of the first guys to complain. I feel like we already have that with Jeff McNeil. We don't need another one, Yeah,
no, he has a temper problem. That's for sure.
Yes.
This is not
That's
like
what I'm looking for.
This is not like the Mets throw in on Arenado and he's ready to fight. This has been going on his entire career. It was happening in Colorado. I'm pretty sure there's like a YouTube compilation of like Nolan Arenado getting mad, and it's just like people throwing inside, or like things happening, and him just like flipping out, like wanting to go after everybody. So I can see that scenario that you said of like, maybe the crowd starts booing because he's like striking out, or just like has no power or whatever. Like that could happen. But let me just throw one more idea at you, since we're talking about starting pitching as well. What if Nolan Arenado is the salary dump in a Sonny Gray trade that reduces the prospect capital to get Sonny Gray. Does that intrigue you a little more?
Probably.
Okay. So because that's what I'm thinking. I feel like if the Cardinals
Yeah.
are moving him, it's probably because of financial reasons. And Sonny Gray's locked up. He's a free agent until 2027, and he's already 35. I feel like they want to get out from that deal too. So if I could take on both of them, maybe I could get something done there. I mean, I don't know if that's a thing, but it's just something else that to at least consider.
In terms of his hitting approach of the way that he's always been, I do think there's still production there, but I just don't know if it's like it's a cornerstone bat as you're expecting a third baseman to be, which Vientos was offensively for us. You can't deny that, even though it hasn't been established. Maybe he has a sophomore slump in that regard, but I just don't see it as a fit. It's one of the last resorts in that regard. I wouldn't be upset if they end up trading for him. It just doesn't. It seems kind of uncharacteristic with David Stearns, because I know that he wants to give leeway to some of these young players. You know, obviously you have Juan Soto now on this team. You have Lindor in their prime, Nimmo in their prime, Kodai Senga here. But when it comes to, you know, the overall roster, there was another point of emphasis of, you know, Juan Soto saying the Mets have a better future. Let's see it. You know, let's see it and see if they do have a better future in regards to, you know, compared to the Yankees, or if they have young talent on the way. I think that that's definitely on Stearns' mind as compared to trading for, you know, one of the best third basemen in all of baseball for a long time. But, you know, he's definitely taken a dip. He's still productive, but he's definitely taken a dip. So I'm not someone who full on voluntarily give up assets for him, because again, I just don't know if that's really that much of an address of need with what they have internally right now.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's all fair concerns. I mean, listen, run prevention, he helps out a lot with that. So, I mean, we know Stearns does like defense. So, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like the deal would have to almost be too good to pass up. And, you know, if there's 5 other teams that are in the mix, one of them being the Dodgers, I don't see that, like, all of a sudden becoming like, oh, here's a really easy trade to acquire him. Like, I just don't think it's going to be, like, a simple path to pulling it off.